when your child kicks a ball or rolls a ball and their eye is tracking where that ball goes, that's an early reading skill. Tracking a ball is how a child will eventually learn to track. Think about an apple. You can already call to your mind what an apple looks like. For a child, they're still developing that knowledge. So every single opportunity we can give them to explore the world and really foster that curiosity that is innate in every child is really part of what we need to be doing. And there's no greater joy than seeing a child who says, I did it myself. That is, it's so wonderful to be able to see children really, they feel so proud of the skills and how they've achieved. So give them that opportunity to feel that pride in their own abilities. Often children are quietly engaged, and there's an assumption that they must be up to no good because they're quiet, and parents might shout across the room, what are you doing? Are you okay? And often you will break the deep concentration.
This is the Voices of Learning podcast with AISB. Conversations around the skills and mindsets shaping the next generation. Hello, welcome to Voices of Learning. I'm your host, Magdalen Gray. Today we're going back to the roots of learning. We're talking about the most essential work of a child, play. You've likely heard that play is how children learn, but what does that really mean in a future-ready world? Today, we're unpacking the science behind why play is the ultimate preparation for life. And joining us today is Ange Guinness, a true visionary in early childhood education. With a teaching career that spans Harare, London, and Budapest, Ange has dedicated her life to understanding how children navigate the world. As a specialist in both Montessori and Reggio Emilia approaches, she brings a wealth of international experience to our conversation. But beyond her impressive credentials and her work as a forest school leader, Ange is most passionate about the co-learner mindset. She truly believes that parents are a child's very first educators and that our strongest work happens when we partner with our children in their discoveries. Whether she's leading a classroom or a workshop, Ange keeps one core truth at the centre, that every child is born with an innate curiosity and our job is to protect and nurture it. We're thrilled to have her here to help us unpack the science and soul of play. So hello, Ange.
Hello.
Welcome to the Voices of Learning podcast. I'd like to start with a question that our previous podcast guest, Heather McMichael, has posed for you, and it relates to our last podcast topic. Her question is, what is a book that you love from your childhood and that has influenced your life?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would definitely say Where the Wild Things Are. I love nature, and I love the book that's where the boy goes to find solace and to find peace and calm. And that's definitely very relatable for me as somebody who really enjoys the outdoors. So that would be a book that I would choose.
It makes sense. Knowing your background, and as we just introduced it to our listeners, that makes complete sense that a book like that, and wow, what great impact that's had, and how great that stayed with you through your learning. So we're going to dig in a little bit to some things that you've been spending your time on, and that we think will be very interesting for our listeners around play, around the science and soul of play. And our first question is around the foundations of play. So the kind of brain development and connection. So really why that matters from a physical point of view as well. So the question that I have for you is that often we're treating academic time as the serious learning, as the important part of a school day, and playtime is the break. We call it recess. It's the time off from learning. But increasing research that we're seeing, and know that you're looking into a lot and particularly from the Center of the Developing Child at the Harvard Institute, it's inviting us to rethink what learning actually looks like, particularly in early childhood. And the research says that 90% of a child's brain muscle development happens before the age of 5. So 90% of the muscle development happens before the age of 5. So essentially their brain is already primed for learning at the age of 5. How does this knowledge and how does this reality change the way we should view a child's day?
Isn't it amazing?
Yes.
That by the age of 5, the brain is ready. It's a sponge. I mean, that is what children are primed. They're ready to learn. So anybody who has a child knows that they are explorers. They want to taste the world and feel the world and smell the world. And that is the brain seeking all that sensory input. So every time a child has an interaction with an adult or with the environment, they are wiring their brain. So they're creating neurological pathways in the brain every time they touch something and they smell something. And as adults, we think about, an object, think about an apple. You can already call to your mind what an apple looks like. For a child, they're still developing that knowledge. So every single opportunity we can give them to explore the world and really foster that curiosity that is innate in every child is really part of what we need to be doing. Because now that we understand that the brain is ready, it's our job to really foster that environment where children can really develop their brains and be exploring and taking all that information in. And I love to say that parents and teachers are not just parents and teachers. We are literally brain architects.
Brain architects. I love it. And that's a whole new way to look at that role as we co-educate children as a parent and teacher team, that we're the brain architects. Wonderful. We've been working on communicating this knowledge that's coming out and this science that's coming out with our parents, so that we can also bring each other up to speed with what we know. And we've recently been holding a series of parent workshops called the Empowered Parent Toolkit, open out to the public. We hope to be continuing those. And one of those that focused on play and brain development sort of together, you highlighted the 6 connections that build strong brains. So amongst those, things like eye contact, shared attention, co-regulation. Could you explain why these seemingly simple things that we might take for granted, simple interactions, are actually the heavy lifting of brain architects' work?
Absolutely. So when children are growing and developing, they need meaningful connections. So every time that you spend time with your child and help them to explore the world, you're helping them to make meaning. And those important moments spent together with parent and child, or educator and child, children are learning about the world. They're learning to make sense of the world. So we talk about children needing to concentrate. Well, that happens first when you draw their attention, or, to a butterfly, or help them to see the world, and they can help ask questions. Play, obviously, is a rich way for children to be in their own world where they feel safe, connected, and they're with an adult who can be next to them. So these interactions are so important for the brain because they give children meaning. So being alongside a child and being with them, that construction of learning,
co-construction.
So important with children, because you and the adults in their worlds are there to help them to make meaning. So those interactions build the brain because they give meaning, and they have an emotional connection often because they're often done with a parent in moments that are so special to the child, and they'll recall those important moments that they've had with you. So, eye contact, concentration, sharing conversations, learning to take turns in conversations. Often a child is very egocentric. It's actually part of who they are till they learn to decentralize. And it's our responsibility to support them with that in a very gentle way, helping them listen when I'm talking and I'm listening to when you're talking, helping them to answer questions about the world. It's really valuable. And all of those moments, because they're attached to emotional input, they really help the children to make meaning of the world and to make sense of the world and make sense of the experiences that they are having.
And they can build on those skills. And what's lovely is that if they're developing those skills already at sort of early childhood age and it's developing, the world around them reacts to them having those skills around. So people that are outside of their core care group or their teacher will also have different interactions with them because they'll be listening differently or asking questions differently. So it builds on itself, which is beautiful if
Great
parents.
foundations.
And one thing that I was going to add is that in our sessions, you were talking to parents also about the importance of presence, about them being there for their children. So even if it's not for the whole of their hour of playing, just to help them set up and help them to feel safe at the beginning of an hour in which you hope they'll be playing is very meaningful, because they've seen that they matter to you and that you're there for them.
Yeah.
But then they might not need you.
I think that's essential, is that children feel part of the family. They feel like they are a valued member of whatever group that they belong to.
It's wonderful. And then the sort of next follow on from that I was wondering is around kind of what play really is. And people often see play as fun. They often see it as something, like we've said, kind of that you do on the periphery of learning, or that's not this sort of a sub part or a recess to learning. But we talk about different types of play nowadays, and there's physical, construction, exploratory, social, creative. Even as adults, we engage in play in ways that we don't even realize play. How do these various types of play actually prepare a child's readiness for learning or grow their learning skills?
Great question. So play never happens in isolation. So even if a child is involved in block play or in physical play, there's always multiple learning opportunities happening. So when a child is enjoying block play, for example, they may be rebuilding a building that they've seen. So it's creating a connection to a memory that they have. But at the same time, they're exploring things like balance and structure, as well as mathematical concepts and spatial awareness. So just in one learning opportunity, so many skills are being developed. It's important that we provide opportunities for these different types of play to give children as much variety to practice those skills. Because we often say that experience wires the brain, but repetition makes it stick. So giving children so many opportunities to have these rich play experiences is vital to that brain development that we were talking about. So creating a safe space for children to have these varied play opportunities, and also providing opportunities, making sure that you set up time for that, and that you create opportunities where children can play and you give them time. I think that's really essential, is that deep play and deep concentration through play often takes children time before they really settle into it.
So important to know that. And I think often as parents, we feel like we have a different role than maybe is the right role to be with them. And often we've talked about this before, about how often we feel like we need to be sort of in their play a lot more. As they're in the flow, we often disrupt that flow. And you've talked about how that can actually bring them out of it, and it can lose that muscle growth of longevity or of focus or of concentration. So one thing we should try and do is read the room a little bit more, I think, and sense when we're needed and when we're not, and not just walk in making comments. Really take time to see where they're at, and if they're immersed in something, is to let that be and let that continue. And I think that's something that parents might not instinctively know to do.
I think that's so true. I think there's the word I often like to use is trust. Often children are quietly engaged, and there's an assumption that they must be up to no good because they're quiet. And, parents might shout across the room, what are you doing? Are you okay? And often you will break the deep concentration that a child is involved in. So have some respect for play, move over, go across to them, see what they're doing, and maybe sit alongside them so that you're listening to the theories that they're developing or the storyline that they're creating, and really take it as an opportunity to see what your child is interested in. I think we can at times break that deep concentration. And, one of the things we talk about in today's digital world is the need for children to build that concentration. We've got 12-second videos flashing by, and children get bored quite easily. But play offers children to get really deep into a concentration level. And we want to nurture that. We really want to nurture children having perseverance and sticking at something, at a self-chosen task, and really deeply being involved. So when you call out to them, you do break that concentration. So it's one of my little tips of parents, just have some time, spend some time walking across to see what your child is doing, and don't break their concentration.
And that can apply very well for all ages of children or young learners, or just to maybe, take some space to read the room before disrupting them or disturbing them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that speaks to all of us probably. So my next question is around movement and cognition. We frequently hear the phrase that by nature's design, a moving child is a learning child. So could you maybe talk a little bit about how gross and fine motor skills like climbing or pencil grip actually connect and build neurological foundations for critical thinking, concentration? Because that's something that's sort of new to us in connectivity with research that's coming out from brain development, and fascinating to know about.
100%. And the most, I think I find it so interesting that the brain develops bottom up. So all of those sensory seeking behaviors that you see children doing, balancing on a wall, these are essential skills. It's called the vestibular system. And that balance helps children to feel their body in space. And the more opportunities they have to develop those skills, and learn about their body and learn what their body can do, and take risks and move their body and really feel proud of this amazing machine that they have control over, the more opportunities we give them to learn to control their body and isolate muscles. All of those are essential for what we later need to sit in a chair. We need core strength. You'll see a young child and maybe they're moving their body because they don't have the control. That takes time, and offering them lots of opportunity to climb and to slide and to swing. These are ways that they develop that important control of their muscles. There's an amazing thing that I don't think many parents know, is that when your child kicks a ball or rolls a ball and their eye is tracking where that ball goes, that's an early reading skill.
What?
Tracking a ball is how a child will eventually learn to track words across a page. So having just those opportunities and knowing how important those play opportunities are to developing later academic skills, I think is essential. So proprioception is another system that we need to know about. That's how a child learns about their movement of their body. When a child picks up a watering can, and they have to adjust how they use their body because there's more water than they expected. Mm-hmm. That heavy lifting sends a message to the brain how much pressure they need to use. That's pencil grip. How much pressure do I need to apply to a pencil when I put it on a piece of paper? Those early skills, those early opportunities to water your plants or kick a ball, those lead to later academic skill sets that are so essential.
That's something we wouldn't consider, but it makes complete sense. And then it helps us to see how that all starts growing from early on, but it needs to start from somewhere. It doesn't, yes. We don't just learn to read. We talked about that in our last episode. We don't just learn how to kick a ball. We have to see a ball, see how it works, see how our balance works, and then I build the muscles with it. That's, very, very important insight, I think, mm-hmm. in helping us help young children grow those skills. So as parents, I think we feel, probably always have, but maybe more now because there's more information available to us, we feel a lot of pressure to do the right thing, mm-hmm. juggling our lives, but also to be the best parent for our children. And there's more information, there's more viewpoints around that. But I think that it comes down to some basics. And I think one element that many parents are battling with is how to move from kind of being an entertainer or a teacher to actually being a play partner, mm-hmm. and how that's actually more okay than we think. Your advice in our recent workshops was to observe instead of direct. which I could see this kind of relief in the room of all these parents who are, yes, I don't need to be in charge in that moment. I can just sit alongside and feel. And also a light bulb moment, many parents wouldn't have necessarily known that by how they were brought up or how what society tells us. Why is it so important that we don't take away our child's narrative?
I think the essence of play is that it's intrinsically motivated, it's self-chosen, and it's directed by the child. So if, a lot of parents will seek an opportunity to be with their child, they may change the narrative, they may offer a different storyline, and often that's your idea, not the child's idea. So really, if we're trying to develop that story narrative muscle, because we do know that later reading skills are developed from early oral language. So if we're trying to develop our child's rich vocabulary and storytelling, we are alongside them rather than controlling their play. We should be working with them. So taking time to really find out what interests your child. What are the theories they're testing? What are the questions they're asking about the world, and really what motivates them? And being respectful in play and taking time to be alongside your child is an important skill to learn, because often we think, oh, this is a teachable moment. I could get them to count their trains. How many trains have you got lined up? And often children recognize that as you stepping in, and they might shy back. So there are ways that you can obviously talk to your child and be playful, but often it's taking a step back and just allowing the child to lead the play. They are the experts at play. And, often I feel such gratitude to work with young children, because one of the things that is so beautiful is that you get to see the world through a child's eye every day, but you do have to have the skill to listen. And I think often in a world where we feel it's our responsibility to teach our children, the world is competitive. We want our child to have all the skills. And of course, there is space for that and there is room for that. But one of the most essential skills that I can recommend for parents is to listen and observe your child's play and really learn who is this little person and what interests them, and go into the play lightly. Don't control the narrative. It does belong to your child. And, you obviously can be there to help build vocabulary and help build narratives and offer suggestions, but try not to take over the play, because it does belong to the child.
So
and
let them be the director.
Let them be the director of their play.
And that's, we're talking about sort of the parent need to do the right thing. And often parents feel guilty. They feel guilty if their child gets frustrated during those play moments and the independent play. We've talked before about welcoming frustration and accepting feelings. How can parents set boundaries that allow for independence without the guilt of not doing enough? Like how can they position themselves to not feel bad when their child's struggling with something and they're not necessarily helping them at that moment? When
parents are working with the child, it is difficult to manage and navigate when you need to step in and really support your child, and when you can let them go through what we call productive struggle. And there's a lot of work done around this, especially by Angela Duckworth, who does a lot of work on grit and resilience. And it's really helping children to develop that muscle to persevere through situations that are difficult. And, we want to be problem solvers. We want to help our children. It's born from love. It's our role as a parent to offer that care and support and scoop our children up and hope that everything is going to be okay and save them. But often we can take away the learning from children. So letting them go through a little bit of productive struggle is often the key to learning. I do have a trick, though.
Right.
I do have a suggestion of how you can gradually release to the child so that they feel supported. And one thing I often suggest to parents is you start by saying, I do it. I'll do it for you. And then you move to, we do it together. And then you move to, now you do it. And that releases, it's a very nice releasing gradually ownership of learning to the child and ownership of a skill that they need to learn. So you're really supporting them, often just a couple of words of encouragement, like, I know this is tricky, I can see you really trying, really validates the effort that children are putting into either learning the new skill or moving through a bit of frustration. So
I like that idea of validating it. And it's also kind of helping them visualize the ownership of the process, because often that sort of co-responsibility for something, if they're not fully aware of it, might never be separated to them and you, or not at the right time. Whereas if you're showing them from early on, okay, this is me doing this thing, this is us doing this thing, this is you, then it can really help. And then by using that language and referring it to other times, they see, okay, and they can also signal to you, I'm ready to do this. No, me do this. And you're like, okay, that shows you're ready. It's not, I don't need to go in and step in. And then sometimes you're like, no, this time I need to do it because it'll keep you safe. Or I'm going to, and then to switch between that. And I think that's a genius way of separating those out, again, from quite early on to show that there's a time and a place, but also, so let's talk about those boundaries that I was asking about, but it's also really a good visualization tool for them of where they are and where you are in different decisions.
And there's no greater joy than seeing a child who says, I did it myself. That is, it's so wonderful to be able to see children really, they feel so proud of the skills and how they've achieved. So give them that opportunity to feel that pride in their own abilities.
Yeah, and I think seeing it as a learning opportunity that you're giving them as well makes you feel less guilty as a parent or a teacher. That's great. And the sort of other part of it is around what sort of learning environments we design for our children. I know you've done a lot of work with your team here about around what that ideal learning environment should look like. Reggio Emilia talks about that a lot. And I wonder, at home, parents often feel like more is more, like we should have this extra element of play around. We should have this, and the phrase less is more has often come up when we've discussed play spaces and the optimal play spaces. How does a more simplified environment actually support a child's role as a theory builder or as a...
Great question. So Reggio Emilia, as you mentioned, talks about the environment as the third educator. And obviously parents are first, educators and other children are second, and the environment is third. And it's really important to set up the environment. We often call parents or anybody working in the environments as kind of the stage manager. You're setting up opportunities. So we want children to be active. We want children to be creative. We want children to feel that they own the learning, they own the story. And if you provide a plethora of toys and a huge amount of opportunity to skip from one to the other, you may take longer for children to get to that deep concentration that we were talking about. So when you curate toys and items and resources for a space, it should be done based on what you see your child's interest in. It also could be done around themes of stories. If you're trying to develop your child's vocabulary, so you want a little story scene that they can play with. So really thinking about what it is that you want your child to be playing with, and curating the space so that there are items in there that really nurture creativity. So children aren't just passively using a toy. Another thing that is really important for parents to know is if you have toys with batteries that make sounds and, have lights and all the rest of it, you're actually taking away an opportunity for children to practice oral movement of their mouth. So all those years ago when we were saying choo choo and, sounds of engines, that's really important for oral development. So the less active the toy, the more work a child has to do to create the environment around it. So
and I would say imagination plays a role in that as well. So maybe the less is more. So, a pine cone instead of a toy car might lead them to have to imagine more around what is between that and it being a car.
And that's lovely. Natural materials. Often children will go on forest walks and they always bring back something special to them. Those can become wonderful. That one day it can be an ingredients in a pretend cake that they're making, or it can be something in the shop that they've set up. But those opportunities to use natural materials is wonderful for imaginative play and symbolic thinking, which is essential.
We've also talked about home routines and the importance of home routines, and not having the parent do everything for the child. And we talk about it being occupational therapy in disguise. So how do you see daily tasks like dressing independently, like helping with chores, or kind of messy sensory play, which could be helping in the kitchen? How does that build executive function, physical coordination, without it feeling like work, or without it having a feeling of duty to it?
So I often go back to my Montessori roots, because Montessori always had in the classroom and invited parents to create practical life opportunities. So children love to feel valued, and they love to feel part of our family community. And actually offering them opportunities to wipe a table, spray plants, be involved in family life routines. There's so much learning there. And if you think about, like you asked about executive function, if you think about laying a table, they have to think, what comes first, what comes next, what comes after. These sequencing and ordering of events are really essential for reading, for planning your day, for making sure that you get to class on time, because you know what's going to come now, what's going to come next. Mathematics, yes. So all of these opportunities that the child wants to be part of really go and develop, speak to their natural orientation to be part of a community. So really trusting children with little jobs and giving them responsibilities makes them feel part of the family, and also makes them feel valued, like a valued member of the community, and offers important skills.
And they're contributing, and they see the feeling of contributing, and why it needs to be most things need to be collaborative and teamwork. You're listening to the Voices of Learning podcast by the faculty here at AISB. If you like what you're hearing, and you're new to international schools or new to AISB, please book a visit, and you can connect with us through our admissions office to learn more by emailing admissions@aisb.hu. I'd like to move now on to a quick fire round. So some quick questions. I have 3 of them that are around playing. One of them is a bit of a myth that maybe we might want to debunk, or you might want to. What is one traditional parenting habit regarding play that we should probably stop stressing about?
Well, I mean, we've talked about a few, but one that I would choose, I think, is the interrupting play. I think that is essential for me. I think parents really recognizing the value of play. I think knowing that play is the child's work, and really reframing that play is not movement away from learning. Play is children's learning. So if a child is engaged in play, be respectful of that, just as you would if they were doing their math homework or their science homework. Really treat play as children's work. Slow down, be present, take time to see what they're playing with, or questioning, or theorizing, and really treat play as child's work. And
yes, lovely. So let them play.
Let them play.
And the next quickfire question is around a toy box. So we talked about learning environments and thoughtfully building those. If you had to choose one open-ended material for a child to have, what would it be and why?
Ooh, I think I might cheat here. I think I'm going to talk about natural materials. Right. So we've already mentioned it a little bit, because natural materials offer wonderful opportunities for vocabulary, right? A pine cone is spiky. It's, you can describe it, and stones are shiny and soft, and, they have lovely textures to them, and they can be anything. They can be part of a soup. They can be part of a princess's castle. It's up to the child how they interpret that material and how they want to use it. So it opens up lots of creativity opportunities. So really giving children natural materials. We used to talk about heuristic baskets, so where you put lots of different fabrics or lots of different materials in, and just get children to feel them and really have them explore and use their senses. So can I cheat and just
absolutely
say natural materials?
A basket of natural materials? And we talked about that again in our recent workshops with one of our attendees who was saying, there's times when this was around digital devices, but with times when it really helps to get the child out the door by giving them the digital device, but as you're getting them ready. And you and your colleague suggested maybe give them a basket of something different, some different natural materials or some different bits and pieces, and see if that doesn't entertain them just as much as that screen feels it might.
Yeah.
There's lots of opportunities to use natural materials as play, as distraction, as calming, and I think that's a very ready available resource as well.
That's a great point, because I think often if screens have been given as a boredom or sort of time, something to pass the time, when you start taking that away, you're going to see behaviors, because children are so used to being mollified and kind of passive, and where they're just watching a screen and they're receiving all that information. Whereas if you give them a basket of natural materials, they're going to have to develop that brain muscle where they're now, trying to think about what this could be. And that can cause children to feel a little bit of disequilibrium. They might feel a little bit out of sorts, but the more you do it, the better they'll get, and the better it is for them, because creativity and imagination are
being formed.
Absolutely essential.
One final one for this round is around the future and what we know now. And as you've been looking into the brain development and the early childhood play and learning, what is one skill that you hope a child develops through play that will serve them well in life?
Oh, there's so many. But I would have to say creativity. I think in our fast-paced world, we do not know what the future looks like. And for a 3-year-old, we certainly don't know what the future looks like. So what we really want to do is create adaptable, flexible, innovative young minds that are ready to solve complex problems that lie ahead for us as a species. So really nurturing that muscle, that creative muscle that comes through play is essential. And I really often see children who use imagination and, really are involved in solving problems in different ways, because the knowledge we have now is known, but
Right.
we don't know what will come ahead. And we want children who are flexible and creative and really can think of solutions to problems that we don't even know exist.
Mm. And that's very important for us to keep on top of. And we often hear the comparison of kind of medicine evolution and education evolution in a similar sphere, because we're learning about the human body more and more. We have better equipment, we have better ways of looking into more research and larger amounts of research around certain topics around brain development and the impacts of various methods of teaching and parenting on children and on their lives. And that's one thing to keep aware of. And I know it's something that admirably you and the team here do keep on top of, and constantly learning more and open to constantly learning more, and then bringing that into the practice within your teaching, and also helping parents to understand that. I think that's something we're really working on, is co-architecting with parents, so we have the same amount of information available. So I'd like to now move on to a kind of bigger takeaway that you'd like parents and educators and our listeners maybe to ponder about and maybe look into a little bit more. What's something from today that you would hope, or you would wish for parents to shift, or for educators to shift in their thinking around early childhood development and play?
So having all this information about brain research really helps us to understand that early childhood experiences have lifelong impact. So quality early childhood experiences are essential. And it's really important that we understand that the brain controls the whole body. So there's really a wonderful book written by Bryson and Siegel, and it's called The Whole Brain Child, and it talks about how a child can move between the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain.
Mm-hmm.
So the downstairs brain is when a child is in fight, flight, or freeze. So this is when a child is dysregulated. They feel, that they need help, that they can't manage this problem that they're working through. And it's really up to us to help a child and co-regulate. We say that all behavior is communication. So what is your child trying to tell you?
That's the downstairs brain.
That's the downstairs brain. And really supporting children through whatever they're going through. We want to move them to the upstairs brain, which is the learning brain. And this is the brain where children feel calm, they feel safe, they feel connected, and they really are ready to learn. In the downstairs brain, the child is not ready to learn. So any advice you're going to give them or any refocus of their attention, it's generally not going to work. So we really ask you to be the calm for your child, to be the bridge that helps them find calm. Your calm is their calm. So when a child is in the downstairs brain, this is a communication to you, to be there, to be supportive, and to really help them move back into the learning brain, the upstairs brain.
And that might just be by sitting with it.
It might just be by sitting with them. And I think that's one of the key takeaways, is to be present.
To be present.
And to be available to your child.
That's a huge takeaway, I think, for the impact that gives. And in our current multi-distracted era, that's also very important to remember the basics of good child upbringing is with caring adults who are present when it matters. I think that's a really important takeaway. And if that was the one thing I as a parent would take away from that, it would be very meaningful, I think, for my work with my children. And as an educator, also that would be highly profound to keep that with me through the day. So thank you, Ange. That was really fascinating. I think there's a lot to take away there. And for parents, for educators, for anyone interested in the kind of future generations and what's best for them, knowing what we know now, and a lot to think about and a lot to process. I hope we can continue this conversation, and really appreciate the sort of depth of expertise that you've been able to share. So thank you.
Thank you, Magda. It's been great fun.
Thank you for listening. If you're curious about our early years programme, or you'd like to see how we foster these theory builders in our classrooms, please do visit us at AISB.hu or email info@AISB.hu. Our nursery programme now runs from 8 a.m. till 5:30. I've been Magdalen Gray, and this is the Voices of Learning. Please go and find some time to play today, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.